Hi everybody, welcome to Deep Dive Movie Reviews with my friend Steve Hackman and myself, James Marsh. This week we're talking Don't Look Up, Adam McKay's political disaster movie comedy with a star-studded cast including Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence.
Hey, but before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to Deep Dive Movie Reviews, it would be a great help if you did. Ring that bell so you never, ever miss a video. And we love talking movies here at Deep Dive. So here, please ask questions, give thoughts, give perspectives in the comments below. James, what is Don't Look Up all about?
So Don't Look Up is essentially a disaster movie comedy. It's the story of an asteroid, a planet killing size that's going to hit the Earth in about 6 months. That's discovered by a couple of scientists played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. But when they take it to the White House, they are met with apathy and ridicule by everybody. You got Meryl Streep as a very Donald Trump-like president who is more interested in her midterm ratings than she is in anything that she can't spin into a positive, either for herself or something that she can use against the competition.
Basically, what you're saying is you're about to lose the midterms because you got caught sending pictures of your cooch to your porn star sheriff boyfriend. So now it's to your advantage to act on the comment.
So this was, and the cast also includes the likes of Timothy Chalamet and Tyler Perry, Mark Rylance, and Ariana Grande, and more, shall we say?
It was a who's who of celebrities there.
It was huge. Yeah, I mean the cast is great, and it follows a grand old tradition of these huge ensemble comedies, and of course these huge ensemble disaster movies, going back to like Towering Inferno and what have you, where everybody was in there having a go. It really sort of added some sort of depth to these sort of character ensembles. It was great stuff. So essentially, I mean, this is a film that was conceived of long before the pandemic, and is at its heart a sort of a climate change issue movie. It's using a sort of Armageddon-esque setup to look at climate change and climate change denial, and science denial, facts denial, and that kind of thing. Coincidentally, as it turned out, it was made during COVID, and it arrives at a time when the pandemic itself is almost an even better allegory than the climate change story that's being told. So, Steve, what did you think of this one?
Well, I went into it thinking, at the end of it, is Timothy Chalamet in every movie of 2021? Because this guy just gets around. But to
which the answer is obviously yes.
Obviously,
yes. He's in everything.
And every picture of note, it seems like he seems to be popping up in. Wonderful career choices, Mr. Chalamet. But like you said, this harkens back in some ways to the disaster movies of like the 70s. I thought of the Poseidon Adventure, these big star-studded casts, but it flips the whole idea of satire. This is a satirical movie, and it's extremely polarizing. It was only after I watched it and I started seeing all these reviews, and even on Facebook, people either loving or hating this movie. There's something about this movie that is picking up on some of the polarization that is happening in America, specifically in many ways because we brought the world Trump, but in the Western world generally. And what I thought was interesting, even before we get into the specifics of the movie, James, is how they cast Meryl Streep as the president, because this movie is very self-aware of the ongoing issues about Trump and what surrounded his presidency during his 4 years. Because if people aren't aware, there was a point where Meryl Streep mentioned something about him in a tweet, and he just went off on Meryl Streep. Rather than being the bigger man, he just laid into Meryl Streep. And I know that Adam McKay was thinking, when I need a president for this movie to play Trump, it's going to be Meryl Streep. Like, it has that level of this movie is very intentional in the message it's trying to project.
Absolutely. I mean, that was some fantastic casting.
Yes.
I think pretty sure what he tweeted was that Meryl Streep was overrated.
That's yes.
And I mean, she's the most decorated actress in Hollywood history, and the notion You know, she's the gold standard. The notion that she is in any way overrated is just laughable. And it could only come from someone like Trump. So, yeah, to cast her essentially as him was genius.
It was. And watching her play Trump for 2 hours was fun to watch. I loved this movie. It was a roller coaster. I laughed out loud. I know that some people have thought that the satire was too on the nose, that it wasn't subtle enough, that it was too much, that the subtleness about climate change was too direct. Here's the thing is, I didn't look at this specifically as this is a metaphor for climate change and this is what's happening. Yes, that element is there, but this was a broadsides against consumerism, the escalation of celebrity culture, the social media craze where people just are falling over themselves to be recognized in social media, the shallowness of that entire culture, that everything is brought to the forefront of this movie and ridiculed and held up. Watching this movie is the court jester from times past. It is speaking truth to power. It is telling us in story a very positive message that we need to know as a society. And that's why it has gathered such polarization, because some people for whom the satire is directed, they haven't received it very well.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to go down well in MAGA country, that's for sure. You know, and I think it's only right that a film like this has been polarizing, because, like you said, the country is polarized and it's a polarizing topic. Shouldn't be, but it is. You know, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, yes, people say that it's on the nose, that it's not subtle in its approach, and it's like, well, these are not subtle issues. You know, the time for talking about these topics in allegory, in metaphor, you know, with subtlety is long gone. You know, these are very, very real problems that, and part of the, you know, the story of the film is essentially about people who don't take any of this seriously.
Right.
You know, who are willing to ridicule the experts or rate their hotness online, you know, turn them into memes or pinups rather than listen to what they're saying. You know, they go on that morning chat show with Kate Blanchett and Tyler Perry's characters, and they're like, we have something very serious to talk about. And they're like, well, don't make it too serious. It's breakfast news, you know. And they're like, no, the world is ending, you know. And
it's big. It would damage the entire planet, not just a house. You know.
The entire planet. Okay, well, as it's damaging, will it hit this one house in particular that's right on the coast of New Jersey? It's my ex-wife's house. I need it to be hit. Can we make that happen?
You and Shelley have a great relationship. No, you stop.
Listen, in all
you need to stop.
I will, but in all fairness, I actually paid for the house.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. Are we not being clear?
And then, when Jennifer Lawrence's character freaks out live on air, they just turn her into a meme going, we're all going to die.
Yes.
You know, and that's all they take. That's all their takeaway is. And so the notion that, this is a topic that should be approached with subtlety and with, you know, with intelligence and with you know, with some degree of sort of delicacy or tastefulness even, is long gone.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. And you know, bringing up Kate Blanchett, what I loved about this movie too is the focus on relationships, because I may be getting ahead of myself, but at the end, when the end does come, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio is married for years to his wife, and then he, because of the celebrity culture that emanates from this whole event being exposed to the public, suddenly he becomes the hot scientist and starts having an affair. He falls into an affair. And in the end, when the chips are down and the end of the earth is coming, he, like some others in this movie, he begins to see what is really important. He goes back to his wife. He goes back to his family. They receive him back. And there's an element in this movie, and this is another thing that I like, not just because of the Leonardo DiCaprio marriage reconciliation, but there is an ultimate message in this movie about what is important in humanity, and that is the love and relationships we have for one another. Yes, we make dumb decisions. Yes, we get caught up in the shallowness of what we think is important. And there is a lot in this movie that is focused on ridiculing what we and I think I can speak for myself. I'm guilty of being part of that culture to a degree, and that we're on social media. We want to put out a post that people like.
We're doing this.
We're doing this. We have to be self-aware. We're doing deep dive movie reviews, and hey, we want you to subscribe. We want you to ding that bell, and
right. We're not spending time with our families. We're doing this.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Kids, get out of here. I got something important to do.
It's exactly that, and the fact that culture has come to a point where that kind of thing, and celebrity culture and what's on at the movies, and who's sleeping with who is far more important and takes up so much more of people's time, and that people would rather listen to what Ariana Grande has to think about this situation than what this Fauci-like character played by Leonardo DiCaprio has to say, and he's the expert.
I give Ariana Grande kudos for being willing to poke fun of the platform on which she stands. She stands on she sits on a certain branch, and she's ridiculing the branch she's sitting on. If anything, I came out of this movie, I'm not a big Ariana Grande fan. I don't know much about her.
That does surprise me.
Yeah. Other than I know she was the singer of the Manchester when those people were attacked, and my son lives in Manchester. Other than that, but I give her kudos. I'm thinking, wow, she is willing to, in a sense, she's poking fun of the branch she herself is sitting on. And I think there has to be a measure of that. Even with us talking about us doing a YouTube channel, is there has to be a self-awareness that a lot of what we do in our lives is a little bit ridiculous. And we've got to be reminded of what's important. And that's what this movie tries to do, is remind us of what's important. This is what Adam McKay, this is the third of his political movies. Obviously, he's done the Big Short.
His quote unquote serious movies.
Right. He's done Vice. And each one of them is kind of trying to be a wake-up call. The Big Short, I particularly like. It is a wake-up call about how do we as a society begin to value what's important and understand that what we've been building on, we're building a lot of our humanity on, has been a house of sand.
Right. And I think it takes a comedian or someone with a background in comedy and in satire to do that, to like you were talking about the court jester, poking fun at power. And I think if you had some, perhaps, dare I say, a more sort of cerebral or serious activist-oriented filmmaker approaching this topic, you'd end up with something more subtle, perhaps, more allegorical, perhaps. But I think something that wouldn't really hit the mark as well. I think because what he has proved that he does really, really well. Obviously he does comedy, but he observes the issues of the day incredibly well, and he's not afraid to hold them up and go, okay, then these are the problems, and he attracts the biggest talent. The biggest, the list, the cast list in this movie is it's insane.
You got Leo, you got Meryl, you've got Kate Blanchett, you've got Timothy Chalamet, you've got
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. This is not one or two A-listers. This is the who's who of A-list 2021. This is
it, but it's not. And I think another thing that people are sort of turning their nose at, this is not just Hollywood activism. This isn't sort of A-list celebrities going sort of singing Imagine down into their into a Zoom call at the beginning of COVID, which was nauseating. This is a means to an end. This does have a message. It does have something to say, and it is delivered in a vessel that everybody's going to pay attention to. I mean, this is a movie that was financed and produced by Netflix, probably because they're the only company that could afford to do it. And it was released on Christmas Eve and went straight to number one. And we know it's not because everybody believes in climate change. That's not why it went to number one. It went to number one because of all of these people who are in it, and because it's quote unquote a fun movie. But it's probably the best way at this late stage. It's probably the best way we can get enough people to be exposed to this message,
Right.
you know, and to give this concept 2 hours of their time just to deliberate over.
And let me put on my Christian evangelical hat, because I've mentioned before, I come from that world, and Adam McKay definitely is at least aware of this issue in the bigger context of what's going on. Because obviously 82% of white evangelicals supported for Trump. And we don't have time in this review to go into the politics behind that. But what is relevant to Don't Look Up is you have the Timothée Chalamet character being a complete contrast to the using of God that Meryl Streep and Jonah Hill in emulating the Trump galvanization of the religious right in America, where, you know, they're using God for this, but it always is ridiculous. And that's for many of us, I should say ex-evangelicals. That's
Very
a term
good.
that's in vogue right now. We look in at where we used to be, and many of us are where we're at in many ways because of where we saw that stream of Christianity going. So this is another element within the movie that is highlighted, where you're seeing kind of this use of God and use of religion by the Meryl Streep, the Jonah Hills, and that religious right, and it's contrasted by the Timothée Chalamet, who is kind of an ex-evangelical himself, who gives probably the best, most human moment of the entire movie when he says that prayer at the dinner table and asks God's forgiveness for their pride, their arrogance. And I just found myself, this is in Adam McKay, this is what religion is supposed to be. This is what someone who's following God is supposed to look like.
Dearest Father and Almighty Creator, we ask for your grace tonight. Despite our pride, your forgiveness, despite our doubt.
He's held up two visions of what acknowledging God in people's life is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to integrate in humanity. And I was particularly moved by that because I've seen many friends and family embrace the Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep version and rejected that Timothée Chalamet version. But Adam McKay is obviously trying to hold that up and saying, this is what we should be. If you're going to be a religious person, if you're going to be looking to God in your life, this is how it should emphasize itself or project itself in humanity.
Yeah, no, it's wonderfully put. It's wonderfully put. Well done. It's like, yeah, people sort of forget that the whole point is this sort of personal humility in the face of greater things, as opposed to sort of weaponizing it as
perfect.
You must abide by these rules, you know, and it's imposing it on somebody else and on other people, and using it to segregate, and using it to scare, and using it to sort of sort of make people feel sort of uncomfortable and question themselves, rather than using it on yourself and going, how can I be more humble and how can I put more out there?
And James, what I love too is Adam McKay's use of humor, because there was beautiful humor in this. I love when Jonah Hill talks about how we pray for many things, but we should also pray for stuff. That I don't want my stuff to go away. Dear Lord.
I've been noticing a lot of prayers recently for people during this time, and I commend that. But I also want to give a prayer for stuff. There's dope stuff, like material stuff, like sick apartments and watches and cars and clothes and shit that could all go away, and I don't want to see that stuff go away. So I'm gonna say a prayer for that stuff. Amen.
Hey, dear Lord, let my stuff. And here's the thing: is although Eric and Donald Jr. and Donald never said that specifically, they said things along those lines the last 4 years that made me going, what the hell are you talking about? And connecting God to this. And so when Jonah Hill just says, dear Lord, I don't want my stuff to go away. My stuff isn't, I just thought, oh, that's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, the other great thing, obviously, about Jonah Hill's character. So Jonah Hill plays the chief of staff, who is also the president's son.
Yeah.
And they put this wonderful spin on the decidedly creepy relationship between Donald Trump and his daughter Ivanka, where he can't shut up about how hot and sexy and beautiful his daughter is. And it's quite disturbing. And they put a great spin on it where Jonah Hill's character just won't shut up about how hot he thinks his mum is.
Yes.
To the point where he's actively sort of saying, yeah, I would. It's almost like I would sleep with her if she let me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And and because it's,
I got to go back and watch this again. It's
because it's Jonah Hill and he's such a great sort of improviser and willing to sort of deadpan and say the most sort of terrible things.
Yeah.
It comes across sort of even better. And he has nothing nice to say about. I mean, he's everything nice to say about his mum. Nothing nice to say whatsoever about particularly Jennifer Lawrence's character. Now, I thought there was a very interesting thing in the way that her character was handled, because she's supposed to be. She's this PhD astronomy student, and but she's also a bit of a sort of stoner and a bit of sort of she represents sort of the woke counterculture, if you like. She's not supposed to be this sort of glamorous beauty or anything like that. She's a very smart woman who should be taken seriously. And people are either just ignoring her or ridiculing her because she's a girl, or trying to hit on her. Jonah Hill's character spends the whole movie going, what are you? Not even, who are you? But just doing everything he can in the most vulgar ways possible, just to put her down. But then when it all is lost, he's the first one to like make a move on her. And she obviously she's like, get away. That's absolutely disgusting. But then even Timothée Chalamet's character, as good as he is, even he sort of, there's a lull in conversation. And so he goes, what else do you do with a girl? Okay. And he moves to sort of make out with her. And she, her reaction obviously is to go, no. Right. And then after a beat, she's like, actually, whatever, if these are my options, he's obviously the much better alternative. And so I thought that was just sort of fascinating in without overtly talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautifully illustrating just sort of the everyday obstacles faced by just women of any status, and how they're just, the only reason that men are ever going to listen to you is because they want to sleep with you.
That's right. They are tools for men. They are objects for men. Their value is based on their relationship to men. And that was definitely another aspect of this that was highlighted. That's what made this movie. I've heard some of the critics talk about this negatively, but I just really liked that it tackled so many issues that we're dealing with in society today. I can't go on without raising this ongoing joke, which I want to raise just so we don't forget it. And that is the Jennifer Lawrence constantly mulling over the fact that the 4-star general charged them for the snacks at the White House.
Yes.
I thought it's both stupid and so funny. I mean, as the world is ending, she's still trying to figure out, why would a 4-star general, and if you're watching this, you've already seen it, but just to remind you, is the first time Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence are brought to the White House to inform the president of the approaching comment. While they're waiting, a 4-star general goes to get them snacks and then tells them that the snacks are quite expensive in the White House, and they're like $10 a piece, and they grudgingly hand over their money. And later on, when she goes to get another snack and then pay for it herself, the person at the snack counter kiosk says, "Oh no, this is the White House; it's free." So
it's not even a kiosk; it's just a pantry.
Yeah, it's just like a little kitchen area. It's just a little area, and so it just drives her crazy. What is the motivations of a man of this stature that he needs to do this? And it while the world is trying to grapple with the idea that this comet is approaching and she's doing that too, this little part of her brain is still trying to figure out, why is this 4-star general charging them for snacks? And I don't know why I found that so funny.
I wonder, I mean, that is a thing that has to be based in truth. Something like that must have happened to Adam McKay or one of the other writers at some point, because it's such a specific weird thing to happen that at some point someone charged Adam McKay for snacks when they had no reason to whatsoever, and it's plagued him ever since. But it's weird because it's completely unprovoked. it's never explained.
Right.
And exactly, it's this person in such a high positions, particularly when compared to them, and he just kind of says, "Oh yeah, about $10 each."
Yeah,
and and yet she won't let it go just for the whole movie. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful little detail.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I kind of like about the film is that, and I think it's also why people talk about how it's sort of it being a bit too on the nose or a bit too broad or whatever. Is that essentially all of these characters are kind of archetypes. Each one of these characters represents one particular either perspective on the key issue or explore a different issue. You know, it's like every character raises a whole new topic and a whole new subject, which is then explored to varying degrees over the course of the film. So you do get all of these different problems with today's world and culture and society addressed just by all of these different people. I mean, Kate Blanchett's character, you know, she's a kind of Megyn Kelly-esque, Laura Ingraham-esque. Well, no, because she's not a newscaster. She's like what's her name? Morning Joe with
Mika Brzezinski.
Yeah, she's kind of a bit like that, maybe, right. Or a bit like Gayle King, or someone like that. But so you see basically that all the sacrifices that she has made in order to get to where she is. She's obviously an incredibly smart, switched-on woman, but understands that she's dumbing down everything. Her job essentially is to look pretty and dumb down the world,
right,
for the morning viewer. And it's taken her to a point where it's like hollowed her out inside, you know, and she is now so deadened to anything that all she is interested in really is just sleeping her way through as many people as she can. And you know, when faced right at the end with the end of the world and it's the final moments, and she's with DiCaprio's character, but he's like, I want to go back to my family. She's like, can we just sit here, get drunk, and talk about the people we don't like?
That was so perfect. That was so.
She has nothing more substantial in her world to do with her final moments.
Yeah, and she's very self-aware of it too. She knows that I have made sacrifices in my life to get to where I am, but I've sacrificed a great chunk of my humanity for this.
Mm-hmm.
And Leonardo DiCaprio, after he has his encounter with his wife, he realizes, I'm not willing to make those sacrifices. I'm going to retain my humanity. I'm going to go back. It was a beautiful scene where the wife brings him back and they have that wonderful family dinner as the world's about to end. And, you know, it was kind of, you know, it's almost had a tinge, James, of the way I felt in Midnight Mass when we reviewed that.
Okay.
You had a town of people that many of them had behaved horribly, and when were confronted at the last moment with the end of their existence, decided we're gonna die, but we're gonna die with our humanity. That is what I felt in this movie. There was some beautiful scenes, and I'd kind of wished that there was a part of me that was hoping the asteroid at the last minute wouldn't hit the earth and that the whole earth would wake up. But obviously that was not the message that Adam McKay was trying to, and I get that. But so what I really, and same with Midnight Mass, the end is coming. These people are all going to die. Who decides they want to be human and who decides like, I don't care, I'm too far gone. And there was kind of that message that what choice are you going to make? Are you going to retain your humanity? Or are you going to acknowledge, or at least acknowledge that, you know, the shallowness of our social media pop culture has affected every one of us to a degree, as you and I have even admitted on this show. It's none of us are immune. There is no us and them. There was no we're good, they're bad. We are all part of this collective toxicity. And are we going to acknowledge it and begin the process of putting relationships first again, putting what's important first again? Or are we going to be a Kate Blanchett? No, I've gone too far, and I just want to sit around and talk about people I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, she completely owns it, and it's great. Yeah. But no, I mean, I think that there was, and I think this is why the people that like this film, have compared it to Doctor Strangelove. I don't think it's as good as Doctor Strangelove, but you can see why the comparisons are there. You know, it's another film about politics and about the military and about this end of the world scenario, but also that the way it ends, it ends with the end of the world. And I think really, I mean, very early on, I realized, there's only one way this film has to end with the end of the world, because that's the point. The point is there is no last minute escape. There is no last minute reprieve. There's no get out of jail free. You know, arguably we have gone too far to stop anything anyway.
Right.
But if the film was to suggest that there was some, you know, Bruce Willis style mission that could do it, or, you know, it would suddenly diverge its course or anything like that, I think it would be a real cop-out, and it wouldn't have anything like the same impact. No, the world has to end in order for, I think, the film to make its point. It's like, this is happening.
Yeah.
You know, this is coming right at us, and there's nothing we can do can stop it. I know what we haven't discussed at all yet is Mark Rylance's character.
I looked at the time, and I was... James, no kidding. I was just going to say, hey, before we move on to final thoughts and score, we have to talk about Mark Rylance and the message about the big corporations, the Jeff Bezos, he's your Elon
Musk, your Bezos, your
Elon Musk, your
Steve Jobs,
the guy from Virgin Atlantic.
Branson,
Richard Branson, yeah.
Yeah, the people who have the means in their pocket to quote unquote solve everything, you know, right, and to feed the world and what have you, and have no interest whatsoever. You know, this idea that you know, they discover he runs this company called Bash, which is essentially Apple or Tesla or Amazon or whatever, you know, one of these huge conglomerates that are essentially pulling the strings behind the scenes. You know, right, they're huge political donors. They have technology that far out exceeds that the military has even. And they have the means and the resources to mount their own independent, you know, rocket missions or whatever. You know, they don't need government leadership or even involvement whatsoever. And it's that moment when not only do they, you know, up until that point, everybody's been kind of doing their best to put their head in the sand and ignore the reality that this is happening at all. But when he identifies that the meteor is actually made up of all of these rich minerals, so the meteor
Rare
itself is worth trillions of dollars, then everybody suddenly wakes up and is like, oh, so we can make money out of this? Yeah. You know, I think there's an interaction between Jennifer Lawrence and Jonah Hill where he's like, don't you want to be rich? She's like, do you want to be dead? It's but rich. Yeah. You know, and
neither one can understand the other. Like,
no,
I cannot. We're talking money here. What are you not getting? And
exactly.
It really highlighted the complete disconnect that we're seeing in a lot of, like, don't you see this is what's important? How is that important if you don't have this? And neither side can understand one another.
And so that, you know, after being told for 6 months, if this hits the earth or when this hits the earth, it's going to destroy the whole planet. When they're like, oh, but it's worth a lot of money. Well, let's let it hit the earth then, and then we can mine it for all. It's like, well, did you not hear the first part of my sentence? It's like, when it hits the earth, we will all die. And it beautifully illustrates just these sort of priorities, these sort of blind, blinkered priorities that only want to hear what they want to hear, you know, at the expense of absolutely everything else. And the little things like the way he spoke and he avoids all eye contact and no one's allowed to look at him and all this kind of stuff. Just, you know, just the fact that the most powerful people in the world are these kind of shy, reclusive, sort of geeky guys that were probably bullied.
Spectrum.
Should not be in control of everything for one reason or another. You know, they're not people. And
no, they have certain gifts, and those gifts should be utilized, but you do not put them in charge. You do not have them making the decisions.
Sure, because I mean, they seem to hold a lot of sort of pent up resentment from their youth as well. You know, these are the kids who were probably bullied in the canteen at lunchtime, and now they have the power and the resources to get back at everybody, and they will. And that was great. And watching his elaborate plan fail bit by bit. And he's kind of like, okay. right, well, it's okay. The numbers still add up. It's going to be okay. And just,
how he was
watch it all.
continually running the numbers and doing algorithms and just freaking everybody out about how he would know about their lives much more than they knew about their lives, to the point where he tells Meryl Streep that she's going to get eaten by a creature that doesn't exist. And it makes no sense whatsoever until you get to the end credits scene. And
and they're like, oh, yeah, it's called a Bronterock.
Bronterock, something.
Because he's got this algorithm that can essentially predict to 99.99999% how and when you're not when, but how you're going to die.
Right. And when he tells her a Bronterock's going to eat you, but nobody knows what a Bronterock is.
Like, what's the Bronterock? And she's like, oh, they don't exist. I guess I'm fine. And then, there's this nice sort of punchline at the end.
Yeah.
And then you also see in the very end credits, Jonah Hill is the last man on Earth. He somehow survives the asteroid, and he's there, and all he wants to do is sort of live stream on social media to nobody about the fact that he's just sort of survived. The fact that he was left behind was genius. At the 11th hour, when Mark Rylance and the president and a few select others, they're like, well, that we do have one more contingency plan. And it's not until she's on the plane that she's like, oh, yeah, my son, who loves her more than anything, in his own twisted way.
That really captured the relationship that we always infer about the Trumps, that, I love my boys. They love me. But you always got the feeling like if the helicopter was taking off with them all and it had too much weight and they were saying he would kick his sons out, to
absolutely
in a second, in a New York minute.
Absolutely. And so there are so many moments like that.
Yeah.
Which just in and of themselves are just hilarious. They're just great jokes, and they only add to this sort of the multifaceted nature of this movie. I think it just gives and gives. And I think I'm gonna have to run back and watch it again. ASAP, really, because there's so much in it, and there are so many characters. I mean, we haven't talked about Ron Perlman as sort of
the crazy general they bring back, war hero to
pilot this mission. Because they need the right kind of face on it. And
what did he say when he's flying and he's giving greetings, and he says to the Indians, both kinds, those with the tomahawks and those with the Indians? I forgot. He said some cultural stereotype about both Indians and American Indians, and it was just, it was that kind of comment that a person in that sphere would make when they're trying to demonstrate that they're not racist, but they're communicating they are. He's trying to, ironically, he's trying to be incredibly eloquent and make some statement, that is so inclusive, and this is my address to all of you, and this is the sacrifice I'm making for you all. And he's like, you guys and you guys as well, and it's and it's doing anything but unify the world. He's literally signaling out everybody and going, you and you and you and you, but it was a brilliant, very racist joke, but perfectly illustrated his sensibility. He was like, I'm not, how could I be racist when I recognize that they're two different things, kind of thing. It's like my best friend is gay. Also, it's just like, there are so many, but it's way more racist. His observation is the most stereotypically racist thing you could say about that group of people. But he's saying it by recognizing it makes him, exactly. I thought, who
respectful.
I thought was underused a little bit was Tyler Perry. I thought Tyler Perry was a little underused. And it was interesting to see him brought into this sphere, because he usually occupies a certain world in cinema that we're familiar with that's become highly successful, but there's not a lot of crossover from that world into this world. But it shows you how much success Tyler Perry has had in being a voice in a particular sphere of cinema that he's brought into this all-star cast. And so the one thing if I have a couple small critiques, and they're small ones, is that I would have liked to seen Tyler Perry with a bit more in his presentation. Oh, sorry, the gang just came home. Pause for an edit. Yeah, you can hear.
It's fine.
They were at Rise today, the trampoline
Oh,
park.
the trampoline place. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd be exhausted in 10 seconds
Yeah,
doing that.
I get exhausted thinking about it. Ethan, was it fun?
Yeah.
It was. See, I got to make sure that we don't become what we've been critiquing in that. Shut up, kid. I'm trying to give a review here. You know, I become
doing something important.
I become Kate Blanchett.
Hey, there are worse things. Okay, Steve. So, final thoughts on Don't Look Up and your score. It's got to be planet killing asteroids out of 5, right?
It has to be planet killing asteroids. And, you know, I pretty much tipped my hand in this whole thing. I thought this was a brilliant film by Adam McKay. I thought the satire, it was on message. I reject the notions that a lot of people have been saying that it's too on the nose. I actually love it being too on the nose. To me, it's not just dealing with climate change. It is dealing with a whole realm of issues that we as humanity are facing. And it's this kind of court jester-like satire that I really resonate with. I thought the cast was spectacular. There's so many things I enjoyed about this movie. I'm going to give it 4 life-threatening asteroids out of 5.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I have obviously been keeping up with the negative criticism as well as sort of the positive things. I mean, if I have any criticism, I think it ran a little long. I mean, I think it's that finding that delicate balance between, I agree that I would have liked to have seen more from some characters, but at the same time, I felt that the film as a whole was just a little bit long, could have tightened up, but you see how difficult that must have been, you know, and how much great material is in there, and that we would have wanted to see more. So I get it. I understand that, and I'm willing to let that slide. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to give it 4 life-threatening asteroids out of 5. This was really good fun, and I will watch it again more than once, I think.
I think I will too, and I think I'm going to go back and watch The Big Short again too, because I'm in a bit of an Adam McKay mood over the holidays.
Well, that works.
There we go. Hey, until next week. And remember, as I said at the beginning, if you haven't subscribed to Deep Dive Movie Reviews, it'd be a great help if you did. It's a way of supporting the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, as well as if you want to ding that bell. That way you get a notification when a new episode drops. Until next week, James.
Take care. And don't look up. Or just look up, I should say.
Look at, yeah, we should say. You and I, we would be team just look up for sure. Yeah. That's right. Definitely.